Welcome to our December monthly show with co-hosts Scott Wright and Kevin Johnson. And this month, our topic is Web3. What is it? And a discussion about privacy and security and this thing called Web3.
I'm
What
waiting
does it
for
all
Web4.
mean?
Yeah, and where are the experts on Web3 to explain this to us?
Right here. All your experts, everything you need to know is here on this podcast.
All right.
Web3.
I predict Web3 will be as effective as IPv6. But
Ooh, that's a bold statement. Wow, right out the gate. Whew. Yeah. Did you know that I bought a new wireless router? I have this new TP-Link system, and there was a bug in it, apparently, that I had to enable IPv6. Or because it's by default, it's off because, like you said, Kevin, nobody uses it. But I actually had to enable it because it causes major issues, apparently. So
that's weird.
Yeah.
I have to ask the question, though, Tom. Why did you switch from the Google Wi-Fi to TP-Link?
I was done with Google.
Uh-oh.
Done with Google.
On principle, you mean? Or
So what's interesting, real quick story about that. So those of you that may have Google Wi-Fi, they migrated everything to Google Home.
Yep.
And I didn't like the fact that I had to agree to a bunch of new privacy policy because it now combines Nest, it combines all of the Google products into one application. And I did not want to do that, so I decided it was time to move on. Plus, I wanted something that supports like Wi-Fi 6 and some newer technologies. So
cool. So good to know.
It was time.
I'm actually in the market for a new wireless network setup. So I have a mesh network at home. I've been using Eero. Like I've got the first gen Eeros at home. EERO. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And we've got the mesh because while my house is not that big, it's long.
You need it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've got to spread it out, and I don't know what to replace it with. Like it keeps pushing the new Eero devices, like, oh, buy the new stuff. And I've looked at the Google Wi-Fi. I'm not happy with it because of what you said. Plus, it's broken in many ways. The inviting people to manage it and stuff like that. But I don't know what to buy. Like I don't know what to swap out. So if anybody has any recommendation, email me. Let me know.
I recommend the TP-Link. It's a X60. We could talk offline, but I'm really happy with it so far. So
good.
Sorry for that rat hole. We were talking about Web3
went down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Well, Web3 requires wireless networks. No.
well, somewhat related, but I think to understand or to because I just want to say, just to start with, is like these terms Web3. These are kind of coined by the tech community at large,
or the marketing community,
So I just want to state that, like, the fact that we're talking about Web 1, 2, and 3, and eventually 4, right? Keep that in mind, just in terms of this is just what people are calling this type of technology. But I think we need to understand what Web 1 and Web 2 are. Web 1 is basically the first version of the internet, which was very static, right? You create a web page, the web page went up, and you interacted with that page, right? Static.
Did what it said.
Yep, static content. So Kevin and I talked about this long ago. You had your Angel Fire site. I had my GeoCities. Scott, you had CompuServe.
I never had an Angel Fire site. I will not say that I never had a GeoCities site.
I had a GeoCities site.
So did I.
But very static content, right? Web 2 is when we saw kind of dynamic content start to come into place, and we are living in the Web 2.0.
Right, but to be clear, the dynamic content, Web 1, if that's what you want to call it, had dynamic content. We were able to do, dynamic pages. We had CGI scripts, PHP, ASP were all
form submissions.
Part of that. I just because I'm sure somebody's going to be the pedantic jerk that I am and call us out on it, because I would.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest, and I used to joke that the biggest difference between Web 1 and Web 2 was either the lack of vowels or the extra consonants, because all of the Web 2.0 sites seemed to flicker and Tumblr.
Yeah.
And, like they would dig dot, what was it? Dig.net was.
Oh, I remember
was
Dig.
DIGG.
Yeah, Dig even around still?
No, it's gone.
But the thing that I think that the big difference between Web 1 and Web 2, beyond the dynamic content, because that was a big part of it, was that we saw I hate to use this word, but a centralization of much bigger sites. Web 2.0 is really when we saw it become popular. Like it has become a point where it's like, oh, you're not on the web, you're not using the web for that. Why would you? So many things moved to using web. One of the other big differences was that web applications started to try to mimic desktop applications, right? Like you started to see functionality very similar to the applications we ran on our computers.
Yeah, it's funny. You used to see, enterprise software. You'd be running it. You'd solid, good response times. All the controls you'd click were really very crisp. And then all of a sudden, the UI in that enterprise software started to look webby, right?
Yeah.
And you click on something and there'd be a bit of a latency as it went to the server and came back. And then that just moved to the web, and that's just sort of the way everything went.
Well, I mean, when I was at Blue Cross, we rolled out an upgrade to Service Center, which was the ticketing system we used. And it went from an application that ran on the desktop that talked to a server to every single computer had a version of Tomcat running, because it was running a web application locally. Right? It was just nuts. Like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And now Web 3.0 is the decentralized.
Correct.
Version, which I find funny to say, because the internet was a decentralized system of its own, right?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
It's that tie into, the Facebooks, the Googles, they're very centralized. We even talk about it, right?
Your data is centralized.
Yeah, data centralized. Big companies have access to this, and similar to cryptocurrency and very related. The Web3 is supposed to be the answer to that. It's not there yet.
It's kind of funny because we sort of heard this prediction, or there was this movement toward web apps, right? Or what did they call it? Was it web apps? Web services, right?
Web services.
So you had your SOAP protocols, and you could have a server somewhere, another service somewhere, and they would just magically find out where each other were and talk to them, and it would all be transparent. But that just didn't really happen.
We did do that. I mean, APIs are microservices. I mean, those are all things, but they're not all talking to each other.
Yeah,
they're talking to interconnected services for whatever, like
they're not
Facebook
discovering each other for that, without any kind of predefined protocol, right?
They're not the utopia of free data sharing that we were told was going to happen. Right.
So and one of the premises of this Web3 is because the fact that individual companies own your data, you have no control over how that data is. I mean, you have a little bit, right, through policies and things like that, but ultimately, you can't instantly move your data over to some other service if you don't like it there. There's very little ability to do that, and that's where I would just say that the people in this Web3 decentralized community, they are very focused on new technologies with like blockchain and cryptocurrency. You'll see a lot of things being discussed about NFTs this is the new kind of way to buy things on the internet virtually. And honestly, all of this ties into the metaverse concept that we've talked about on the show before.
Not Facebook's marketing metaverse, but
correct. Well, that Facebook has their own version that they want everyone to use, and now there will be more companies that will have their own version. And I mean, my prediction is ultimately none of these metaverses are going to end up talking to each other. They're just going to be whoever has the most money and the most users is probably going to win. And unfortunately, Facebook is in a great position, I think, to do that. So, but I guess there are some concepts just to talk about real quick with Web3. And you hit on that, I think, Kevin, with decentralization is the big theme. And I don't want to say that, blockchains are going to solve all of the world's problems. Some people actually believe that.
Yes, people absolutely believe that.
And we have memes and jokes in the security community about that, right? Blockchain saving everyone and all of that. But there are some benefits, really, that I see. But to your point, Kevin, it's still very in an immature state. It's kind of like the Wild West right now, where these, tech giants and investors are throwing money into, like cryptocurrency is a great example.
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely right. It's in its infancy, but I think at the same time that it's in its infancy, we are seeing massive scams abusing it.
Oh my gosh, right? It's crazy.
And one of the reasons is that decentralized aspect. Anybody can create a cryptocurrency, a crypto system, a blockchain, a Web 3.0, whatever buzzword you want to use.
Yep.
And what is it? Jack Dorsey from Twitter, not from Twitter anymore, but I think the quote in one of the articles I read from him was actually a really good one. Is that it feels like, and I don't know if this is what's going to happen, but it feels like what we're doing is we're moving from the centralized Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon to a decentralized investment firm, and that worked out so well for Toys R Us. I don't know why we wouldn't want to
for Toys R Us.
The internet as a whole, right? Like we're changing who controls the stuff, because there is still control. We can.
That's
there's
correct.
Going to be somebody who runs it. There's going to be somebody, and by the way, one of the problems with this hype is that we are seeing the same vulnerabilities and security issues.
It's going to be the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
Over and over again. But it's made worse in this case, in my opinion, because of the focus on encryption and privacy and stuff like that, is that there's less sharing of information of why that broke, why that was a vulnerability, why that happened.
More proprietary. Right? Is that what you're saying? More proprietary design. Yeah.
I hesitate to use the word proprietary, but yeah, I think it works. It's and I'm not saying we shouldn't encrypt, we shouldn't have privacy. I'm just saying that there is such a shroud of mystery purposely put around this stuff that it becomes harder to verify that what you're doing is right. It's actually enabling a lot of the social engineering things that we're seeing.
What does it mean to go off the grid? Well, for most of us that are constantly relying on our phones, tablets, and laptops, it means shutting them off and doing some other activity like enjoying nature or spending time with friends and family. Now, you're probably a lot like me and struggle with turning off or putting down that smartphone because we always feel the need to be constantly connected. Listen, it's hard to go off the grid, but the good news is that there are products that can help. So that's why I recommend using a silent Faraday bag, which can instantly block all wireless signals, quickly taking you off the grid and giving you back control of your wireless devices. Check out their full product line at slnt.com. And because you listen to this podcast, make sure you use discount code SHAREDSECURITY at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
You want your organization to be secure and compliant and to have a healthy culture, but your employees' lack of awareness makes you vulnerable to data theft, fraud, and compliance penalties. It's frustrating that the boring static training content that's being used today has failed to improve employees' ability to defend against cyber attacks. At ClickArmor, we know that without using gamification, it's extremely hard to get staff to understand how to avoid threats. Our gamified simulations and challenges have provided a 50% average improvement in thousands of employees' ability to spot phishing threats. Go to clickarmor.ca/shared security to get your free gamified phishing assessment for up to 500 employees. You'll see quickly how gamified simulations can help your team be more resilient and compliant and help avoid costly ransomware and fraud incidents. Let ClickArmor help you go from being an underappreciated, stressed out fall guy to being an innovative leader who's the catalyst for greater productivity in your organization.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the whole, all of these things, like take the decentralized apps, or they're called D-apps, right? Which are the apps that are kind of powering this Web3. They all have some type of cryptocurrency or token-based incentive, right? For either using the services or investing money in these new services. I'm just curious to know, is cryptocurrency going to catch on mainstream one day with like the average Joe, right? Because I just see this as way too complex of how to understand what cryptocurrency is, how it works, is an extremely complex topic for the average person. My opinion.
I think it's already caught on to the average person, depending on where you're at, right? And what I mean by that is, I feel like this may come across as insulting to somebody, and I don't mean it that way. I'm actually really impressed by this. I met this guy. I had a childhood friend. I went down south to see him. I was down there for work. We had lunch, and he brought a coworker with him that I met. And nice guy. We connected on Facebook for some reason, because people connect on Facebook. And he is all in on cryptocurrency. This guy who, like, he did landscaping, right? And I don't mean by like he ran a landscaping business. I mean, he was the grunt who spread fertilizer, right? And nothing wrong with that.
No,
just the definition of common person, right? And he has jumped on this, and he's making a success of himself in this field, and he's doing it. And so there absolutely is the non-techie person, that is doing this and doing well for some form of well. I know way too many people who are buying into Ethereum and Dogecoin and Bitcoin and everything else. And bluntly, the fact that you can go to PayPal and invest in cryptocurrency says the common person is able to do it.
It's getting there.
I would just say, though, to me, it's not so much a daily currency you will use. Those people, it'll be more for speculation, right? Or I wouldn't even call it investment, because it's so volatile, right?
Unless what is it? Is it Brazil, where like McDonald's and whatever, you can go in and buy, like, it's your phone, and paying with your phone allows you to pay with Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I think it will be at least a generation before it becomes sort of a mainstream thing, just with people being comfortable with that. People like me, I'm not going to walk around paying for McDonald's.
Well, until the government regulates it, right?
Why not? if I may ask, don't you pay with your phone already?
Once in a while, but not always.
What would it matter which currency you're paying with if the phone app is like, if Google Pay on your phone gave you the ability, and I don't know that it doesn't, I haven't looked, but if Google Pay on your phone gives you the ability that when you tap your phone at Dunkin' Donuts, or I'm sorry, Tim Hortons, when you tap your phone at Tim Hortons, if it could just pay with
I understand. It's not that I don't trust, that the crypto is good or whatever, right? I mean, I do use Apple Pay with my phone once in a while, not that often, but and I trust Apple's infrastructure. It's just more of a comfort level thing, and it's almost a legacy thing, right? That you grew up with. And I know you and I may even be an early adopter myself, but there's probably a lot of people that aren't. And I just think that there's going to be a lot of people who want either the hard currency, or they want the bank card. They don't want some other.
That's what I mean.
I totally agree with you that yes, there are people. I mean, there's still people like, oh, I can't do a Kindle because I need a physical book. I get that.
Sure,
My
yeah.
question is really along the lines of, if you're already using Apple Pay, Google Pay, if they offered the ability to just seamlessly pay with Bitcoin.
But I would guess the question is, why would I want to change?
Exactly. That's my point. Why would I change?
But my point is, it's not a change. I think that,
what advantage is it?
Clear. I don't pay for things with cryptocurrency. I'm not a cryptocurrency person. As a matter of fact, currently, I don't believe I own any cryptocurrency. So I'm a weird nerd, I guess. But to me, it's the same as PayPal. I just, like we just talked about, I bought a gift for my wife from eBay. I paid with PayPal, right? From PayPal, I didn't even consider where that money came from. And I don't mean like I didn't do my budgeting. I mean it from when I went to eBay and signed in and said, okay, pay for this BTS autograph for my wife. That's what it was. It was Jimin's autograph because that's her bias, I guess is the way to phrase it. But when I paid for it, I didn't even think about which of the checkbox. Did it come out of my balance in PayPal? Did it come out of my credit card? Did it come out of my debit account? Whatever, right? I just said, yeah, pay for this. So
I mean, it's a continuum, though. I think there will slowly be more and more people who will accept those kinds of things, and there will be more and more places that the only way to pay them will be via certain currencies. So we're going to have to adjust to it at some point. I agree. I don't think there's any reason necessarily not to. I just don't see a huge reason to make the change yet.
Yeah, I don't see a huge reason to make the change either. I do think that when it becomes that simple, when you just check the box in PayPal or check the box in Google Pay or Apple Pay or whatever,
it's going to be about convenience.
It has to be transparent to the end user.
And I'll make you a deal, Kevin. When you come to Canada and we go to Tim Hortons, I'll pay with my Apple Pay.
Okay, good.
Actually, he'd be paying with Dogecoin.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like, I mean, that's why I said it's more of a generational thing, because I know people in the younger generation who say, "Oh yeah, I got some Dogecoin, I got some Bitcoin," right? And like, nobody my age that I know has any.
I know a number of people your age that has it. Here's the question I would ask you. I would say, when you talk to the people that say, "Oh, I have some Dogecoin. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have that," ask them what the hell they do with it.
They lose money, is what they tell me.
Mine's just sitting there, losing money.
The majority of the people I know that are like, "Oh, I have this. Oh, I have that," in that fashion. That not the people who are all like. You know, there's people I follow on Twitter and am connected to, and friends of mine that they are all in. Like,
they're like day traders,
right? Day traders.
Yeah.
But the people who are like, yes, I bought Ethereum. Yes, I bought Dogecoin. Yes, I bought this. Whatever. Every single time I say, okay, what do you do with it? They're like, oh, nothing yet. I don't know what it.
They're just speculation. It's really just hoping it'll go up, right? So,
yes. Yeah. That's why I say is once it becomes transparent, when I pay with my phone, when I pay with my credit card, it won't matter to me which currency I'm paying in.
So I think it sort of goes to what Tom says, where there's the big like Facebook or the big ecosystem or metaverse, and they introduce it. Yeah, their population is going to start adopting it.
Yeah,
so
I think a good example is Canada, right? When I travel to Canada and I pay with my Amex, and I will be.
Oh, you pay with Birch Bark or Pine Cones?
I giggle. Yeah. I giggle every time I use my American Express card in Canada. But, when I pay with my credit card, I don't care what currency I'm paying in, right? Whether it's Canadian dollars or American
people do care because the exchange rate you get kills you when it makes it.
You're absolutely right that when I go to do the monthly payment, I care. But like at the store, when I take my credit card and swipe it or tap it or whatever, there is no consideration for me as the end user. I don't have to do the translation. The system does it for me.
Yeah, that's nice.
When you Dogecoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin is there, then I'll be impressed. When I can pay with my American Express and the vendor or the credit card determines whether it's Bitcoin or not, That's what they should be working toward, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's a good point that, I think part of the Web3 concept is that cryptocurrency and tokens, that is essentially the fuel of transactions that you make. What the blockchain is built on, right, is that fuel. So I guess what's interesting to me is that how that is tied to a wallet. So thinking of your identity, right? So in a Web3 world, your identity is tied to that wallet, which is built with tokens, cryptocurrency. So, that is kind of the core concept of you can take those tokens that you earn through whatever, doing something in Web3, and you can use it to buy things, or you can use it to invest in new businesses. You can use it for lots of different things that, traditional currency, I think, maybe just doesn't have those use cases.
Right? Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's totally logical that a crypto wallet would have evolved to be secure enough that you could use it for identity for other applications, right? In Canada, I don't know if you do that, if you do it in the States, but for a lot of government and other high authority types of transactions, or my tax account, I can log into my government tax account through my bank identity. Mm-hmm. Because the government trusts that the bank trusts me.
Yep. And that identity is, we've talked about this forever, right? Identity is fundamental. If we don't have some way to verify your identity, whether it's that you're really Scott or whether it's the anonymous wallet identity that we're matching to, and we don't care that wallet is Scott, right? Because Craig Wright is a liar. But sorry, I had to throw that out. If we're talking cryptocurrency, let's be very clear. Craig is not the inventor of Bitcoin.
But when you have an anonymous, I'm not sure how this all works, but when I can imagine you're pointing somebody to an anonymous wallet, doesn't that sound like a really great pretext for a scam, a social engineering scam?
Of course. Absolutely. But that's the point, right? That's why the wallet has to be secured. That you have to. I have to have control of my wallet. The minute I lose control of my wallet, I lose control of that identity. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that's a fundamental part of this, right?
Yeah, it is.
To have the decentralization, to have the privacy, the wallets have to be anonymous.
Yeah, it's a compromise either way, right? So,
to me, this is the same way as, and I don't mean to be political, but this is the same thing as voting and voter fraud, right? We have a choice. We can guarantee that there is no such thing as voter fraud, but then your vote is not private. Mm-hmm. Or we can have the ability that voter fraud will happen at some level, but your vote is private.
Right.
Same thing here. We either have the ability to have an anonymity and privacy, and our wallet is anonymous, or the wallet is tied to your identity directly, and then we lose the anonymity and privacy. And it's just a matter of what do you want the system to do. With Web 3.0, they've made the choice to say that anonymity and privacy, I was going to say trumps, but he's ruined that word. But anonymity and privacy trumps the idea of securing that identity. And we tie everything, this reminds me back to, and we'll be old for a second, but bulletin board systems and handles.
Ooh, BBS.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. When I logged in as... I almost
What was your old handle?
It wasn't a handle because I never went by the identity. Like nobody ever called me this, but my username on many bulletin boards was Napalm Death. It was a band I liked.
Yeah, definitely.
And I used it. And I almost said it just casually, and then I realized, oh man, that's going to sound awful. But Napalm Death, I was a stupid 14-year-old. But Napalm Death wasn't Kevin, right? Like it wasn't. There was a level of anonymity there because I didn't have to vet that Napalm Death was me.
Yeah.
But if anybody else, like there were times I would log into a bulletin board system and try to register for an account and Napalm Death was taken.
Right? Napalm Death 98.
Oh man. So the identity was separate from the person, which is weird for some people to understand because for so long we've tied napalm death, tied identity to the person. God, I'm gonna have to put them on Spotify and listen to them on the way home.
Now you're gonna have to.
I haven't
Bring back
listened
your
to them
childhood,
in
John.
forever.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
okay, we'll stop saying napalm death.
Yeah, my handle was Bare Naked Ladies because that's another band that we
a little bit different of a band.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Well,
and for anybody who wants to know, the password for the Napalm Death account was Sepultura, because that was a different band I enjoyed. I was really good at passwords
before Kevin
back
was
then.
in security, and
Yeah.
yeah, let's just state that for the record. This is a great conversation. I think this is obviously going to evolve and change.
More to come. Yeah.
More to come on this, but I know this. I've seen Web3 and DeFi and the all these terms being thrown out, and it's actually really started to kick off. I just seen more conversations about it, mainly because when Facebook announced this metaverse thing, it got everyone started talking about it, and so I think this will continue into next year, and we'll see where it goes. But hopefully those of you listening have a little bit more understanding of Web3, and we love your comments too. On what you all think Web3 is going to mean for the internet and for privacy and security, being the big one, I think. And I think the message here is that it's not going to change, right? We're going to see tons of we see hacks right now. I mean, crypto exchanges and wallets and
it's not going to end
all being hacked.
our jobs.
No, absolutely not. But
and eventually, when we get to the 4th generation, there'll be Web 4J.
Yeah.
That's when we all become a Black Mirror episode.
Yes.
Well played, Scott. I caught the pun.
That's right. That's right. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's wrap this show up. But we will catch everyone on the next weekly show and next monthly show in 2022. So thanks everyone for listening.
Have a great year.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Have a great year and
a great life.
That's Scott's saying, is have a great life at the end of every show. So enjoy your life, and we will see you in 2022.